Welcome to the Atheist Experience. We are in our 27th season, and we have yet to hear any convincing evidence that a god or gods or spirits or ghosts or ghoulies exist. Do you have the argument? Do you have the evidence, the reason to believe that we've been looking for? Well, if you do, then please call in because the show is about to start. Hello, everyone. Today is April 9th, 2023. I am your host, Johnny P. Angel. And joining me today is my beloved co-host, Christy Powell. Christy, how are you doing today?
Hey, I am very glad to be here. I spent a lot of last week with family. I am sloughing off a lot of Catholic guilt and shame right now, so I'm a little bit fired up. I'm ready for some of these calls.
I'm ready for the calls too, and I just want to before we go on to the calls, I want to talk about why we're here today. We're here today is a very significant day for lots of people around the earth, and it's in part to celebrate a very important person in history, in culture. Okay, we know him from his humble beginnings, but he wasn't an ordinary person. He had a dual nature, human
Mm-hmm.
and something more. Um, as a child, he clashed with the gatekeepers of culture, and he struck out on his own path. But he wasn't alone. He traveled with others. He came to his end at the crux, at that point in history, the dying of the old world. And he died because of our past sins. But he chose the hour of his death. He died so that others might live. Those who accepted his sacrifice found new life. But he rose again, didn't he? And his teachings brought together people of many cultures. He lives on in all of us, obviously, as a symbol that there are always possibilities. And of course, I am referring to our Lord and Savior, Commander Sachin Tagai Spock. And, you know, we know him. We love him. Christy?
Live long and prosper. What else can I say? Yeah.
Now, peace
between worlds.
Yes, peace and long life. I'm very moved. I hope that we'll all remember. And I'm wearing blue in honor of him, as we all do on this day, to honor his sacrifice for the crew of the Enterprise, so that they might escape the spreading Genesis wave, get out of the Mutara Nebula, and so we could all feel young again.
And now we're all on a search for Spock.
Yes, we are. We're all searching, aren't we all?
We are all, in a way.
Individually, we all are all searching for Spock. But anyway, with that in mind, the Atheist Experience is a product of the Atheist Community of Austin, a 501c3 nonprofit organization dedicated to the promotion of atheism, critical thinking, secular humanism, the separation of religion and government. I'm just broken up because I keep on thinking of that moment where, like, I remember that moment. Yeah, through the glass. Oh. And Christy, let's all of us reach out to our loved ones and tell them that we are and always have been their friend, because we don't know how much longer we have each of our family members. You know, even though Easter time can be difficult, seeing people, maybe the fighting, try to get past that, shall we? Should we take our first call?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's take Emmanuel, they, them, out of Georgia. Emmanuel, how do you come out as an atheist to your parents? That's what you want to talk about. Well, tell us about you and tell us about your parents.
Hi, good afternoon, guys. My name is Emmanuel. I'm originally from Puerto Rico. Sorry, I'm super excited because this is my first time calling, and I've been following you guys for about 10 years now. So thank you, by the way, for having me. Anyway, I'm originally from Puerto Rico. I've been living in Georgia for about a little over 10 years, and my parents are very Pentecostal. And I came out of the closet, out of the gay closet, in my teens. But it's just they are very religious, and I'm always like fighting with them because I just don't want to hear anything that has to do with religion, if that makes sense, because they're always like, "Oh, God bless you,
Sure.
God this and God that." It's just so annoying. It really is. So
Mhm.
Oh, yeah.
I said I saw a like a YouTube thing talking where Dr. Degrassi was talking about how if God is not all, he cannot be all good and powerful. Like pretty much saying that he cannot be both, right? So I did write that in that letter. How he, as a kid, I always knew I was gay, right? But I was like, and then they're always talking about how God has said kids and children are from God. But I always had this feeling about being gay, right? So he either cannot be all good or he
All
cannot
right.
even be all powerful.
Sure.
Okay. Really quick, Emmanuel, you're excited to be here, and we're excited to have you. So let's stick with one thing at a time. You called to talk to your parents about coming out as an atheist, and you're talking about coming out perhaps as gay or gay rights, and talking about different arguments for the existence of God. Let's talk about one thing first. How do you come out to your family as atheist? Do you have to? Do you want to?
I think I have to so I can make my point.
What's your point?
And
What's the point you want to make?
I think it's the right thing to do. Well,
Okay.
we don't have to live. I don't have to live your like religious beliefs, and I just want them to back off on the religious belief and stop like shoving it down my throat, if that makes sense.
It's
Does.
about setting a boundary, letting them know that, this is what I believe, and so I don't really need to keep being reminded about what you believe. Yeah?
Oh my goodness, yes, pretty much.
Okay. Or there's lots of ways to do that. Is you might want to start now. Different people will tell you different things. Pardon me. Oh, I'm all broken up about Spock. But when you have interactions with your family, other than with religious things, are you close? Do you get along? Do you have calm energy, or is it a tension-filled interaction? What's it like?
It's always a tension-filled interaction. We don't. I mean, I love my mom, and we want to say that we are tight, but we barely talk, which is the honest truth.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. Well, then and what is your usual interaction with them? Are you usually do you said there's tension. There's lots of different kinds of tension, right? There's that quiet tension where it's suspenseful, and then there's tension where it gets loud or contentious. Do you yell at each other? Do you argue with each other, or is it more like you're giving each other eyeballs? What's it like?
The first one where it's a quiet tension. We talk for 5 minutes on the phone just to pretty much touch base and make sure that each other are okay. And then we hang up and don't talk like in weeks.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, it's totally possible that sharing this part of yourself could make that a lot worse and could drive an even deeper wedge. And that's, something to be mindful of. But it sounds like you're wanting to be closer, and a little bit of sincerity, a little bit of transparency may be an important step in that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's exactly how I feel. And it's just, I know that I always, every time I listen to the show and listening how people want to be closer to their parents and their family members, I'm always like, shit, I don't need to be close to my family. Like, I don't need that love. Like, if they don't care about me, I'm the one who's gonna say bye and move on. But the truth is, it really affects me, and it's not until now that I can really say that out loud.
It's your life, Emmanuel, and our family is there. There's a tradition, I think, of you stick with your family through thick and thin. And I think that notion is maybe a general principle that we like. It's certainly aspirational, but there are family members who are not, who we want to get away from. I'm not saying your family is someone you need to get away from, but I would say that you're not obligated to continue communicating with your family if they are putting you in a position that makes you that affects you negatively. Or you can set up boundaries, and you probably should. We should all set healthy boundaries for ourselves. I guess that's probably more of a therapist's take on it. And so I don't want to say too much on that, where you should set your boundaries. But I will say this as far as communicating with your family members about your non-belief, because it's already a tension-filled interaction. You might be minimalistic about it. Okay, you don't have to say God is a lie. All of this is brainwashing. You don't have to do that. When you watch people on these shows call in and butt heads or wrestle with the hosts, it's a kind of Thunderdome. It's a place where we don't have to live with them. We don't have to have Thanksgiving or whatever. We'll probably never meet these people in real life unless they're cool and we want to. But we probably will not. And so you have to take a different tack than you would with family members. And so what you might consider saying is, next time it comes up, if it's your mom or your dad or whomever, say, hey, I want to let you know, I've been examining my faith in God for some time now. I didn't want to bother you about it as a personal journey. And I don't believe that stuff.
Yeah,
So
I would very much encourage you to center it around yourself and your experience. It's not, this is what is right, this is what is true, or this is what I expect from you or demand from you. It's, hey, if you want to be a part of my life, well, let me tell you about me. These are my hobbies. These are my interests. These are the things that I like. And talking about what you believe about the world is going to be a part of that.
Yeah. And you're not saying that they're wrong. Now, they're probably going to take it to mean you think they're wrong. You think that they're foolish. You think that they've done wrong by you, by inculcating you into these rights. But you can say, no, it's nothing about you. This is my own personal journey, my own personal examination of myself and the world and what I think is in it, and what I think isn't. And I'm just not there with you on that. So I just want to let you know that, mom, dad, whomever. And I don't want to talk about this stuff right now. I need to explore this on my own.
Right.
I want to talk about the other things we have in common, whatever that is. If there is anything, it sounds like there's not a whole lot. I'll tell you from my own personal experience that my mother is a church lady, and she wished me a happy Easter today, and I took it for what it meant. It was an important day for her, and it's not an important day for me. Not really. It's a day that I got Friday off. That was cool.
Nice.
But and it might, yeah. And it's usually at a nice time of the year, so I can do some stuff outside that maybe I couldn't do before, and maybe in the future I can because it'll be too hot or too cold, whatever. It happens to be a nice day today, and that's about it. I don't need to rub it in to her. I don't feel the need to do that, but I'm not newly out as an atheist. I've been out for years now, and I've went through the the fight with her over it. So I'd keep it minimal and let her process it. It's like was it a cortado where you put like a little tiny drop of
just a little bit of like milk cream and foam
a little bit.
Yeah, just to smooth it out a little bit. Yeah, no, I think that's exactly the right take. If you center this around you and around who you are and wanting to have a relationship with them, it's not about coercion or control or about who is smarter or who is more right or who votes the way that they're supposed to. This does not need to be your mission field. You don't need to colonize their minds with your beliefs just because they're superior. They may very well be more rational. They may very well be more reasonable and possibly, potentially even very valuable for your parents. And maybe they'll express an interest in it, but it doesn't sound like that's where you're at. So I think the only thing I would really tack on to what we have been saying so far is that while I think it can be very valuable to come out to have these conversations, you're still not obligated to. So if you want to share a little bit, share a little bit. If you want to eventually share a little bit more, share a little bit more. You are allowed to open up at the pace that feels right to you, or not at all. And it's not an obligation to feel like you have to be transparent. The fact that you don't feel safe being open with them is not entirely your fault. Now, some bravery may be called for if you want to preserve these relationships. If you want to show up and engage with this relationship, then yeah, maybe you do need to kind of put yourself out there a little bit and extend some trust, but don't overextend that trust or put yourself in a position where you're going to be vulnerable in a way that you're not prepared to be.
Yep. Final thoughts, Emmanuel, and then we're going to let you go.
Awesome. Oh, okay. No worries. I just wanted to say that that's how I feel. Like I'm not obligated to do anything I don't want to, especially if I'm not ready to come out. But I feel like they, and I mean they are. I not only me and my parents. I mean like the society as a whole. They always want to infringe their religious belief, and that's why we are suffering with, with how would you call it, with gay hate and transphobia and just phobia as a whole. And that's why I feel like enough is enough, and we should be able to voice our opinions and say who we are. That way they know that we're out there. And just because we are atheists, that doesn't mean that we are bad people. So I think it's just that people believe that we're just, and there's just no equality. And that's what we are.
Well,
that's a lot to take on, though.
Yeah.
That's like our whole culture. Just be here in these relationships if you can.
Yeah, Emmanuel, we're going to let you go. Did you hear me? Did you hear anything that I said? It was
I didn't. I assumed that it was perhaps on my end. I was waiting on it.
Now, that is a lot of pressure to put on yourself, Emmanuel. I'll let you go. Thank you for calling. You got to pick your battles. When you are an underdog, you don't rush head on in. Okay, and though you might be motivated to try to turn the tide of prejudice against everyone who doesn't think like the majority or like the people in power do, you got to be strategical about it, and remember that different audiences require different means of communication, different voices, but different ways of communicating. And don't, I would encourage you to think through, Emmanuel, the way that you your inspiration to make the world a better place for the LGBTQ community, for non-believers and everyone else, to do that. But that's not on your parents, right? They're people. They're not society. They're a component. Society is made up of people just like them, but changing their minds is not going to fix the world. And so you have to remember that we change the world by changing individuals' minds.
Well, and if people don't know that you don't agree with those things, they're going to be a lot more likely to say it. You can't be surprised. We were kind of joking before the show about that thing where like you compliment your mother-in-law's cooking, and then every time you come over, she's making the same dish, and maybe you didn't really mean it the first time you said it. Of course, people should be decent and kind to and about everybody, regardless of who's actually listening. We don't scan the room to see which minorities are here and which ones we can talk shit about. That's obviously not good behavior. But if you haven't shared with anybody that this isn't your belief system, that these aren't your values, they're just going to keep on assuming that they are.
That's right. I would start small and I would work from there. And if you want to make a difference in general society, I would donate your time, money, creativity to other avenues. Find people who are doing what you want to do, or how you want to change the world, and join them and find out where their needs are and contribute there. Right. That's what Christy and I are doing right now. That's why we're here. I'm going to go on to our question of the week. Last week, we asked you, the audience, wrong answers only. Why was Jesus betrayed? And here are our top 3 answers. Number 3, Stephen Veach said, he didn't pick up the tab for the Last Supper. There are people like that, and we don't know if Jesus was one of them.
Or
Number
tried to
2.
split it 13 ways, even
Ooh.
though he had 2 glasses of wine and an appetizer. Hate
Right.
that.
Yeah. Well, at least he could have done is he paid for water
Right.
and then made it wine. Right. Number 2, Logan Atchison or Atchison, sorry if I mispronounced that, says Jesus was betrayed because he was more popular than John Lennon. And I think at that time,
At that
that's
time, certainly. Yeah.
probably true. Right. Number 1 is Noda_Republic, who says Jesus was betrayed because he kept scheduling meetings that could have been an effing email. Oh gosh.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Not going to say he had it coming, but it's a fair point.
Right. Well, we have another question of the week. We have this every week. And I'm going to ask Christy the question. And then I want you folks to leave a comment. Don't put it in the live chat. We lose the live chat after the show. Put it in the comments, and our folks will go through it and find it. So the question of the week is, what's a life hack that God doesn't want you to know about? Christy, it's a life hack.
Well, so I don't know who knows this. I don't even know if you know this, Johnny, but the reality is you are actually able to have sex without there being like a magical ritual, without there being all of these like ancient words spoken. You don't even have to have somebody else there. Like, it's possible to just have sex. You can just do it. It doesn't require all of this extra hoopla. And I think that's a life hack that I really wish that I had known about, before I got married as a conservative Christian virgin.
Oh, when you close the faucet on sex, right?
Yeah.
It kind of makes some people act out.
Yeah.
Right.
Some pressure starts to build up.
Like,
metaphorically.
Right. And you might be tempted to just go ahead and get married to some other horny person so that you can you could just have sex. And that you don't have to do that. You can kind of just find other people who are consenting to it, one or more, or none, and just have a good time and just be nice to each other, be courteous.
It's a revolutionary idea. I don't know who knows this. I'm trying to get the word out.
All right, that's good. That's a good factoid for the folks out there. Well, I'm anxious to find out what the audience has to say. There's going to be some brilliantly stupid comments, and I will look forward to seeing them.
Absolutely,
Please, be as awful as you possibly can as far as wrong answers are concerned. I want to see them. I scroll through the comments. I like the positive comments. I also like the negative comments. Don't try to outdo yourselves.
Yeah.
But some people say Johnny talks too much. You're so right. Some people think that Johnny thinks he's funny. Sometimes yes, sometimes no. But anyway, leave your comments below, and I will be so happy to read them. Before we go on to our next call, we do have some super chats that I'd like to get to. Christy, I've been yapping. Can you read those super chats for us?
Greg Markowski says, Christy and Johnny, thanks for the show and happy whatever day. $9.99 from Greg. Thank you for that. And then $50 from a string of letters that I will not be able to pronounce, but asking us to comment on the following. Conservative Christians are destroying America. Johnny, thoughts? Yes. Sure.
Ding, ding, ding. Yes, they are. And those who are indifferent to that and believe that conservative Christianity is just some mindset that exists in the island of their individual communities, they're wrong. They're bleeding out into our lives. They are trying to make us like them. And we cannot allow that to happen. That's not what America is built upon. A bit of hypocrisy. Okay. Reflective patriotism. Look it up. There are some amazing things that this country did before any other countries did. There are some amazing atrocities that we've committed in a hypocritical way. This is not 4th of July. I don't know why I'm getting into this, but but there are some things we've done right, and there's some things we've done horribly, and there's ways we can improve. And the good stuff, these people are stepping on the good stuff that we did: separation of church and state, freedom of thought, freedom of religious expression or non-religious expression or non-expression. These people want to turn this place into the societies that the founding fathers left behind of a religious dominated society, Middle Ages style. And they think it's cool, mostly because they think they're going to be on top. I think it's terrible, and I've read a lot of books about this. We talk about this on the Nonprofits all the time, flagship show of the ACA. There's a lot of books. If you're interested in some of the books that I've read, go ahead and check out my Facebook, because I've read some and I've posted the images of those books that I've read. But yes, and we're seeing it. We're seeing it in the news cycle all the time. This is not merely fun intellectual exercises, cults without traction in the world. These are people who are punching above their weight class as far as political power is concerned. So, long answer. Christy?
Yeah, no, I mean, I might play around with some of the philosophy of, well, are they really destroying America, or are they just changing it for the shittier? I don't know what in America is. I don't know what one looks like when it's broken versus when it's been repaired. But what I do know is that the America that I was born into, in so many ways, feels better than the one that I exist in right now. And I don't mean to have a golden age mentality about everything getting worse. I don't want to be this like doomsayer, but I look around at what's going on in our legislatures, and I have a lot to be concerned about. And so I'm glad that we are doing this work to push back against that. Because for every survey or whatever else that we see that shows us that atheism is on the rise and that people are becoming less religious, that's not reflected in our society right now. And whether that's a, quote, death rattle or, the fundamentalist shock troops are here, and they're causing a whole lot of strife.
Yeah. Something else, and I wanted to say this to our first caller, but I didn't get a chance to. I'll say it now. The discriminatory attitudes, the restrictive notions of how people should be is not limited to the religious. It exists in our community too. People who pride themselves, who, I'm a little stiff, but pat themselves on the back. It's back day yesterday, so I can't really do it today.
Right.
About how enlightened they are. These fedora tipping atheists that are out there. A lot of them like to poo-poo atheism plus. I'm not naming any names. It's not worth my breath. But
what's the point of the thing?
Yeah, these people are just as limited and as restricted as these religious types, except one less thing. They don't believe in a God. I believe that the world we're going for is infinite diversity and in infinite combinations, right? And so that each human being and society can develop and let the discoveries of the last 1,000 years guide us into a future that's better for all people and society as a whole. But that was a lot to say. I want to talk to Wesley. Wesley, you're coming out of West Virginia. You're a theist, and you may be authentically suggesting that everyone in this show is a witch, and we worship a dead frog.
You got it. Hi. Yeah, I'm Wesley. I'm in Huntington, West Virginia. How are you?
Great. Why do you think that? Why do you think that that's the truth? And if I get a whiff that you might be trying to prank us, I'm just going to hang up on you. So tell us why you think that there are witches on this show. Let me talk first. Let me talk first, Wesley. Okay. Why do you think I'm a witch? I don't think I'm a witch. So unless I'm having like I'm sleep witching or witchering, I don't think I'm doing it. So tell me how do you get this information? Where's it coming from? Now talk, please.
Oh, okay. Well, I prayed to Jesus saying,
nice.
Jesus, I fail you not believing in your forgiveness. And you showed me a dream of a foot that didn't bleed, that is cut off. And Jesus, I fail you being double-minded and double-hearted and double-tongued. And in the dream were two creatures wearing wedding clothes with pointing ears and sharp teeth. One cut off the foot, and the other lifted its hands like it was praising Jesus. But neither of the creatures said any words. So, Jesus, would you give two healed teeth to every mouth on earth? And he did.
Does this explain why you think that Johnny is a witch?
Yeah, where's me witching come in?
Well, you see the angels and you say not. That's what witchcraft is.
Okay, so by definition, just anybody who doesn't believe in angels is a witch. Is that where we're going? Is that why we're witches?
Well, you don't know the definition of witch. A witch is to be sluggish with the Holy Spirit, to see angels and to say you don't. So you saw Jesus 7 times and you said you didn't. That's
Wesley, what if I told you I don't see angels? What if I were to say that? What would you say to that?
Well, that just proves his point.
Yeah.
Sure, I'll tell you what you're going to do. You're going to undergo a ceremony. A ceremony that brands your flesh with a barcode. It will be called the Omni. You're going to do it for the money. And the outcome of that barcode is that all of you who take it, joining the witchcraft of Satan, will be buying $40 bags that will be labeled tuna salad and chicken salad, but the meat.
I mean, at least Satanism is paying $40 and providing lunch. Johnny, where are you going?
I don't know where the value is in $40 bags. I think that I don't know what's happening with Wesley. Wesley, I hope that that you get the care that you need. I hope that you're surrounded by loved ones who help you out when you need it, and that will listen to you and maybe help you work out whatever your thoughts are on this subject. That reminded me a little bit of the time cube stuff. I'm just gonna move on from.
It's fair to do, yeah.
There, yeah. I tell you what, I'm gonna take a call from Mr. Warlight. All right, Mr. Warlight's coming out of Alaska, and he says that he has proof that leprechauns might exist. All right,
let's do it.
Yeah, what do you got?
Yeah, so I have a few pieces of evidence for the possibility of leprechauns existing. I would like to get you guys' thoughts on that.
Can I get like a, 1 sentence or less definition of what a quote leprechaun is?
Yes, it's a humanoid. It's a humanoid character. Okay, it's like from like Irish folklore. It wears green suits and it hides gold at the end of rainbows.
The buckles on his hat, or is that not important?
I would say that. I mean, look, it's a spectrum. Well, it could be kind of that, or it could just be very similar to that.
All right, fair enough. Could be a band. Could be a simple green hat. Okay, go on.
Yes, so I can take you to the very first account of leprechauns and get your opinion on that.
Why not?
Hit
me. Yes. So, in the 12th century, the Ulster king, the king of the Ulsters, Fergus, fell asleep by an ocean side, and he was dragged away by not by 1, not 2, but 3 leprechauns.
3 is the number of the leprechauns, and the number of the leprechauns was 3. Yeah.
Yes, but as soon as his body hit the cold water, he woke up and he chased them away. But dude, that's like he saw the leprechauns, man.
Nice. That sounds like that's from a history book. What was the book? What was that from? I like folklore. Where is that from?
Okay, I just, I actually got it from a historical source on the internet.
What's the name of the source? What was the website?
Wikipedia.
Got it from Wikipedia. Okay. So
because there's an article that says that a thing happened, this thing happened. I mean, how is this evidence? Help me out here.
Okay, if you don't take that as evidence, I have more. I have like two more.
well, yeah, it's great, but
one is good if it's real.
Yeah, one is good. That's not even evidence, but that's just a story. There's a better way to phrase this, but the plural of myth is not history. But what was the site? You got it from Wikipedia, and that's fine because the nice thing about Wikipedia is at the bottom of the page, you can go look at a citation. Why don't you go ahead and find that citation and give us that citation?
Sure. It says, look, Celtic Culture, a historical encyclopedia by Koch John T. That's
cool.
That's one. I mean,
yeah.
I mean,
so it's an encyclopedia of cultural myths. Okay, so there's a story, but at its root, Mr. Warlight, there's a story about a king, I guess, who was asleep and was carried into water by 3 leprechauns, and then and did he see them running away or something, according to the story?
Well, as soon as his body hit the cold water, he woke up and he chased them away.
Right. Okay. And he was a king, so did he call an APB, all points bulletin, on rounding up these leprechauns? Because I'll tell you something, a king has that power, can mobilize knights and the guard to round these leprechauns up. Do you know if there is any other evidence other than a story told? Well, a story about a king reporting this to someone. Was there any? Did they catch one? Did they do an autopsy? Were there drawings done by the scribes? What do we know about what happened after that? Or is it just a story?
Yes, according to the historical account, you see, they did catch the leprechaun after they ran away. He seized them. It says
seized them. Okay, and then what?
Oh, I mean, look, this is a while ago. I mean, we don't see them today. But look,
why do you think we don't see them today?
Because it's for the same reason we don't see Julius Caesar today.
Because they're all dead?
Correct.
Okay. Now, Christy, are you convinced by this? Or do you have questions?
I am not convinced. I think that we are a few pieces of important data away from having any data.
Yeah.
So I'm very interested, Mr. Warlight, and I'm not going to say I would like to believe. I don't have a particular emotional attachment or need for there to be leprechauns, but I am very much interested in how you got down this path, because clearly you would not believe us. You'd not be interested. You'd be bored, frankly, if Johnny and I just started pulling up random websites and saying, well, here's a website says that a thing happened, or that there was a story from a person, and you wouldn't find that compelling or meaningful in any sort of useful way. But there's something about this story from this website that feels more useful, and I don't know what that thing is, and I'm hoping you can maybe help me understand why you would find this to be meaningful.
Well, I mean, look, if you don't find this to be convincing, I know where you can find real leprechauns, where they've been documented to be real, and they show up.
I'd love to hear one of these places. Where are they documented to actually show up, and who documented them, and how do you know about it?
Yes, they show up quite often at this place. So on St. Patrick's Day, you show up to Dublin, and you will see leprechauns, on the parades, and in participating in it. Like, the leprechauns show up there, and you will see them.
Sure.
There's lots of photos,
Yeah. Of that, I'm sure. Well, Thank you for your time, Christy.
Yeah, I don't know much else to say about it. It's worth noting that Wikipedia, that same website, if we want to just use the term website to describe all of that archive, says that that leprechauns are figures from folklore.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the understanding on that very website is that none of this is real. So I'm very curious about the process of information, and I'm hoping that Mr. Warwick can put some of that together, can sort of think through the rationale and come to some ideas of not just what he believes, but why.
I think I can tell you what Mr. Warlight, I'm willing to bet as many wooden nickels as you can find that Mr. Warlight believes that it's worth his time to call in with silliness. That's what I think it is.
Sure.
So, but I actually went to law school with somebody who believed that fairies exist. She sincerely had a belief, and it was just as well. I'll say this: it was more of the I've experienced them kind of a justification,
Right, yeah.
as opposed to the historical research of parades in Dublin and stuff, and Wikipedia, and that there's historical record of folk tales. I was going through while we were talking to Mr. Warlight stories about jinn. I know that there are plenty of stories in the Middle East, in like the Persian type of tales of people having interactions with jinn, and that has about as much historical significance as King sleeps by a lake.
Yeah, I mean, we're filling it all in, right? Like, because you and I have a cultural concept of the notion of leprechauns, we are sort of expected to fill in all of these gaps. Because really, what was presented to us was there once was a story, and that just is not how we try to understand the world.
No. And you know what's funny is just talking about the process that I go through when I hear a call like that. Obviously, I saw the description and I'm thinking troll, but maybe there's going to be something more interesting and compelling from the troll who calls into the show. I sometimes think we don't have to necessarily have someone who believes in the thing that they are calling about to have a good call. But what I expect out of my trolls, all right, trolls in the audience who are listening either at the moment or in the future.
If you aspire to be a troll, here's how to do it right.
If you aspire to be a troll, and if you want to impress whatever it's worth to you, me, in your ability to troll, you're going to have to bring a better game than that. Okay? Do some research. Bring me some interesting, difficult to reconcile facts. And we can have a fun conversation about whether leprechauns could be cryptids. We could have a conversation about, the black swan fallacy. We assume that leprechauns don't exist until we discover that they do. But I'm not in the business of trying to make arguments for cryptids. If you want to be a troll, do better. Because that was D- on that one, Mr. Warlight. We've got another super chat. Could you read that? We got Native Atheist.
Yeah, let's see. From Native Atheist, $10 for the crew. I personally very much appreciate that notion. And then another from James Call, who left us $5, said that he missed me on Talk Heathen today. Talk Heathen earlier today, great time. And then asked the question, how the hell do I get a jacket like Johnny's? Oh. Which is, I think, what a lot of people are thinking right now.
The internet. You can get anything these days on the internet. This is my special Talk Heathen celebratory jacket that I'm wearing now on AXP. I wore it two years ago on Talk Heathen to celebrate my first time on. And I just thought that, since I had heard the good news as a boy that he was risen, I thought it was appropriate to wear it today because he is indeed risen. Of course, he rose again on the Genesis planet. And he recovered his Katra from Bones, and he came back and he unified Vulcans and Romulans. But anyway, if you like what we do here on AXP, Talk Heathen, Truth Wanted, the nonprofits, and you'd like to support us, there are some ways you can do it. You can become a member for as little as 99 cents a month. Click the join button below the video, and this will give you access to special chat emojis. And of course, as you have heard, you can send a super chat. People have been doing that. We do appreciate it. With a question or a comment, which will be read live on air during the show. And I'm going to go ahead and tell you about our podcasts while I'm here.
Mm-hmm.
We have podcasts. We have a channel that just does the audio. Now, you regular listeners already know this, but new to the channel, you might not know this. I'm going to go ahead and tell you that you can listen to us. You don't have to watch us. You know, sometimes you're driving, sometimes you're working out, sometimes you're trying to get to sleep and you want to hear dulcet tones. Christy Powell, tiny.cc/AEN podcast, where you can just listen. Just stand by in the dark and listen to all of our shows, to AXP, Talk Heathen, Truth Wanted, Nonprofits, and all the other channels that the ACA has ever produced. You can also support us on Patreon at tiny.cc/Patreon AXP. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take a call from, I'm going to do Carpe Diem. Carpe Diem is calling from Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
And he called Talk Heathen earlier and wants to ask a question or talk about moral obligation versus moral virtue. What do you?
Yeah, I'm actually
what are your
calling everybody today.
Sure, why not?
Can you hear me?
What? Yeah, I can.
Sorry, okay. So I've tried this in a couple of different ways, and Christy, I heard some thoughts from Christy, but I'm going to try this differently this time. So I don't know if you've heard of Sam Harris's moral landscape, but even if you didn't, and in case the listeners haven't, there's this notion that there's peaks and valleys of good things and bad things. And if we really want to live in a better society, we want to try to get to the peaks, right? Avoid those sucky places and get to the hills of niceness and pleasure and avoid the suffering. So I guess it's like I struggle to see this distinction between obligation and virtue, because to me, if it's a peak, it's a peak, and I want to try to get there. So I have this humanistic value of seeing us getting better and better as a human race, right?
Okay.
So how do we decide when we should do something and when it's just nice if we do it?
I have a thought on this. This is talking with some friends of mine on this subject in the past. The idea that if you can do better, you must do better. If you can do good, that you are compelled to do good. And the reason, I think, here's the thing. Let me tell you something, Mean Gene. All right, Carpe Diem, that you can wear yourself out as a human being, because if every virtue is an imperative, okay, that means that you are having to, if you're obligated to do, if moral virtue and moral obligations were the same thing, then I should never sit down and play video games, even for 5 minutes.
Sure.
I would have to be out there at a soup kitchen. I would have to be out there writing law review articles on transgender rights and why we should have more of them. I would have to be out there doing what I can to start a ranch for abandoned pit bulls to have a nice place for the rest of their lives. I would have to be eating only the healthiest food, I think. I would have to be always working out with the right amount of reps and weight and stretching every damn time. It would be an indistinguishable hellscape of, I would never have time for myself. I think one has to recognize the limits of the human state. And some things I think we are obligated to do. I believe that we're morally obligated to not kill. We are morally obligated to drive safely on the road and not to murder people. Those kind of obligations. But am I morally obligated to spend every waking hour teaching people responsible credit at homeless shelters so that they can get back on their feet? Or is that a virtuous thing to do? And I guess there's where I draw my distinction, is that maybe it's soft and maybe it's very murky, but I think most things like that have to be in the virtue category, because you would wear yourself out if you were morally obligated to do every virtuous thing all the time. Christy?
So that's fair. So here's my pushback, and only because I want us to, as secular people, to become to. Hello, can you hear me?
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Hello.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So just a pushback, because I muted myself, so I want to make sure. So a pushback, because I think it's our goal to improve this system so that we are making less. And I agree with you. Even if you did dedicate all your time to moral causes, which moral causes? Pancreatic cancer or lung cancer?
Right.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Cancer, so it would be paralyzing at some point to decide what the hell do I do with my time. But that's not really what I'm talking about. I agree with
Carpe
you.
Carpe Diem. Why are you at the AIDS walk? There's a cancer walk across town next week. Exactly. Like, you're donating money to starving children in Africa. There are refugees in Southeast Asia right now. You should be. It's.
Why do you still have a kidney?
You still have a kidney. You own a home. You should be donating that home to a poor family somewhere. You could look at, and this is not what you're talking about, but just to follow that up, and you'll pick up your thread. You can get into a kind of death cult, apologizing for your very existence because you're not doing absolutely everything you possibly could do at all times. But that's not what you're talking about. So please, what are you talking about? If it's not
it is interesting that you brought that up, because there's people who are antinatalists, and part of the reason they're antinatalists is because the very existence causes suffering, right? So I completely see what you're saying, but here's what I'm actually asking, right? And I called a different network today too, and I stumbled on my words. I'm trying not to do that on this time around. My concern is with.
I have concerns about that too, but Christy, just to pick up that thought, and maybe there's go in a different direction. There is a limit to what I can do. I think this comes up a lot with regard to, dare I say the word, veganism. With veganism, I know that there's probably one or two or more very, very passionate individuals who are watching or will be watching about who are vegan, who want to go off on a tear about this right now. And to you, I would say, I appreciate your passion. I don't appreciate the method of your communication. It feels like it's a false flag operation for big beef when you talk like that. It feels like you're a plant by the beef companies to turn people off to veganism. But notwithstanding that side thing, I really do think that eating less meat, generally speaking, less meat is inarguably, for most people, better for the individual's health. I'm not a doctor, not that kind, and I'm not a environmental scientist. I'm not an agronomist. I don't study agricultural stuff. But less meat, less taxing upon the environment and the meat industrial complex, what have you. But to try to cut it all out, you're gonna kind of fail. You're not going to convince most people to do it. And so I think there's a level of what's good for the individual is probably steady improvement of the individual and society to push society And I'm not saying this because I'm older now, and when I was younger, it was burn down the establishment, erect a new structure. I'm not saying that. Oh, it needs to be slow,
Incremental, yeah,
incremental
coalition
change.
building. No, I
Yeah,
hear that.
yeah,
I'll be brief because I mean
yeah,
we kind of did a lot of this conversation on Talk Heathen earlier
yeah,
today, worth checking out.
yeah.
But I suppose that I kind of better answer this question by just getting at, well, what is good and what is bad? Like, is there good in the world? Is there evil in the world? Or can we actually step away from those kinds of judgments
Yeah.
and look at the world through a lens of preference? I recognize that when you and I are talking about these incredibly important issues, I mean, cancer and AIDS, let alone all of the like very nasty things happening politically and everywhere else, I know that the word preference can feel uncomfortable. It can
Mhm.
feel insufficient. But I actually very much believe in a worldview of acceptance that says we're allowed to stop looking at things in terms of good and bad and start asking ourselves, well, what would we like to see? What would we like the world to look like? And start working towards that. And then we don't have to agonize over, well, did I spend my time exactly right? Did I work enough? Did I do enough to make the world a better place? Is it sufficient? Am I allowed to rest now? Can I have a break? Am I taking too many breaks? We can kind of just drop all of that and simply ask ourselves the question, is what I'm doing right now working to make the world the way that I want it to be? And if you can answer that question with a sense of honesty and a sincere concern for yourself and for others, a lot of this hand wringing can start to drift away.
Yeah. Christy, I would venture to say that it's progress, not perfection, is a
Sure.
phrase that comes
Okay.
up, and I would say that if everyone who has the time to do so, I've got friends who are taking care of children and volunteer. All right, they do it. I don't know how the heck they do it.
Yeah.
And I don't want to call you out, but there's someone I know who's undertaken uh, a major obligation in life, to take care of the child of another, and who still finds the time to do social advocacy. And much props to you. I'd name you, but I don't know if you want me to, so I won't. But if everybody who could gave a little bit of time, a
Mm,
little bit of money, if they had it, a little bit of their creative thought, right? Their creativity, their skills, their artistry, their brilliant, their genius, whatever it might be, towards something they care about, right? I'm not saying, all your free time, go donate, don't go do garbage cleanup on the side of the highway or something, but an hour a week, if you could muster it, to I don't know, research causes that you care about and find some way to contribute. I have been working on my flow chart, my theism dead end, the labyrinth of misbelief flow
mm,
chart. But if I did it like even 15 minutes a week instead of in bursts, I would have it done by now, since I've
sure.
been
Yeah.
volunteering at the ACA, and I would have another tool at my disposal to be more effective. Um, I have personal aspirations. This is Johnny Share hour. I have personal aspirations. I have all these short stories, all these stories, these science fiction gimmicks. If I spent an hour a week on one of them, I would have a little story by now. I could have been somebody. I could have been a contender. But as it is, one gets wrapped up in the daily grind. One has to decompress after a day's work. One has to just turn off the brain sometimes and go and play Wolfenstein,
Hmm.
and there's those guys. I'm not going to say who they are. They're bad guys. They need to be taken care of. And in the video game world, you can do that. But you got to allow yourself that. You're not a machine. So, yeah, everyone out there, you're watching the show. I appreciate it. We've talked about this before. Put the rubber to the road a little bit. If you can, do something that means something to you, because conservative Christians are doing that. They're getting out in droves. They're voting so that you have a smaller voice. I don't know what that means, but that's the beauty of being a non-believer, is you get to choose what's important.
Well, and I think it's important to remember that we don't have a quota. It's not about, am I doing enough? Am I not doing enough? It's about, are all of the things that I'm doing working towards the world that I want to live in? And sometimes the best way to make the world that I want to live in is to watch a bunch of TV and drink a little bit too much and stay up a little bit too late, because I need that to be the best version of myself, at least some amount of time.
Yeah. Yeah. It's about balance. I say you should do something you got to work. Or if you can work, you got to pay the bills in this society. You got to pay the bills, so you got to spend some time doing that. You got to eat kind of healthy, otherwise your body's going to fall apart. You got to move if you can move. You got to take care of your body. You got to take care of your mind, and then you got to take care of the stupid parts that need a little bit of distraction now and again. And right now I'm pretending to be a samurai wandering around Tsushima Island. And I'm having a great time doing it, but it's not taking over my life. It's just a little bit of this, a little bit of that. But I'll tell you what, we've got merchandise. Visit tiny.cc/merchhca for your AXP t-shirts, mugs, hoodies, and even our limited edition t-shirts. This month, it's I Prayed to Joe Pesci because he looks like a guy that can get things done. George Carlin. And I made the observation that it looks like Joe Pesci meets Huey Lewis. If that's the same image, it looked like Huey Lewis. Speaking of that was something that our executive producer put together. I want to look at him right now. I want to see his face. I want to see the crew. Please show us the crew.
Look at all these hardworking people up on the screen.
Yes, there they are. Oh, look at that.
Is this sufficient evidence for us to believe that Greg's face exists?
I don't know.
Do we have the data?
I'm not saying that Greg's face doesn't exist, but I don't hold the belief in my heart, in my mind, that Greg's face does exist. I want to move on to Rick out of Canada. Want, perhaps, but I will. Rick, you say the atheist worldview, the world is stunting scientific progress. I don't know what the heck that means. How is atheism stunting scientific progress?
Well, because if the atheistic worldview of evolution and such, they tend to eliminate all opposing thought by firing all the opposing scientists. And then you guys turn around and say, well, that's not science, right? Like that's the atheist thing, especially Aaron Rothford. He always says that they're not scientists because they don't believe what I believe, right? And that's what you guys do.
Rick, I would argue that if you're not employing the scientific method to solve a particular problem, then you're doing something else. And if you're using the Bible to solve or to address the problem of the origin of life or changes in allele frequencies over time or biological, stuff. If you're using the Bible to do that, then you're a preacher. Just get yourself a church and go preach it to a bunch of people. But if you want to be in a scientific journal, you got to do science, friend. Right?
Yeah, so if you criticize evolution, you consider that a creationist position, or is that good science?
Let me tell you something about the scientific process. I'm not a scientist, but I will say this, that do you know how scientists do their job? Do you know how they do that?
I have an idea, yeah.
Give us the idea. What's your idea? I'd love to hear what the idea is.
Well, they use the scientific methods. They use the tools
yes,
that are
that's
available,
the critical part.
And they do it. They look at a theory that they have evidence for, and then they attempt to disprove the theory. And if the theory stands at the end, then you move it up in the ladder to the closest thing to a scientific fact, right? That's how good science works. But when you get criticizing those ideas,
Rick, I think you just kind of jumped way over. I think that a lot of people think that the scientific process is in a way is like the Marvel Universe version of scientific discovery. Like Tony Stark wants to invent a new element so he can power his super suit. So he just spends some time in the lab, blood, sweat, and tears,
or cave.
Yeah, and maybe like actually playing on the radio. I don't know,
Yeah.
and or whatever, and then it gets done. That's not how it works. You say they try to disprove a scientific theory. I think that's that might be like what might happen well down the road. I think what they're working on is hypotheses, right? They're working on tiny stuff, right? The like minuscule operations in the way that the universe works, in the way that the material world operates. They're not like, they don't sit down at their science desk and say, well, I'm just going to disprove the theory of gravity and Newtonian physics today. That's not how it works.
Went to the lab, did a science.
Getting my Nobel Prize. You know that's not right, right,
Johnny,
Rick?
Johnny, if we lived in a world where
Rick, answer my question. That's not how it works, right, Rick? Yes or no?
Okay, sorry, can you repeat it quickly? Paraphrase?
They don't sit down at their desk to do a science and disprove a major theory of science. That's not how science works, right?
Yes, they do in the lab, not at a desk. But yeah, their attempt is to disprove the theories so that they can move on.
The theories.
Point.
The theories. Okay. So they're just shooting. They're just aiming for They're shooting for the moon, and if they miss, they fall among the stars. Is it like that, or is it much more minuscule, Rick? Is it much more focused, Rick?
You're talking about on the hypothesis level. I'm talking about on the like evolution theory. It should be holes should be poked into that theory. We use that as a basis for everything. Now, every discovery is attributed to that. And
but
they
I
haven't even
think you're
got
missing the point of Johnny's point. I'm sorry to talk over you and interrupt here, but fundamentally, he's trying to encourage you to realize that there is no big boardroom in which all of the scientists get together and say, well, what's the science for this year, guys? It is tiny little incremental explorations of incredibly insignificant seeming things that we then sort of stack up. There is no review board that says, yes, evolution. You guys are still cool with that one? Yeah, let's stick with it. It doesn't work like that. It starts on the tiniest little level. And so this, wide spread conspiracy that we are trying to like prevent good Christian research from making it to the surface is just not how any of this operates.
No, but it is that way though, because when you oppose when you get rid of opposing thought, you are doing exactly what you just described, that very thing. And evolution, it has so many holes in it, and like I said, everything's based on it. If you really examine the evidence, I used to believe in evolution. I used to attribute it to the Bible. Creationists don't have to eliminate evolution. I worked it into my theology. But after examining it all and calling you guys, it's a crock, man. And everybody speaks against
Rick, you examined it all, Rick.
You examined
all of the evolution, Rick.
How do you have time to call?
Do you hear that? Do you hear that? Do you hear that notion? Sincerely, like I'm not trying to like mic drop you. I'm not trying to insult you. I really want you to stop and think about the idea that you have examined all of the evolution. And I'm not just trying to play with words. Think about that. Think about the doctorates that you don't have. Think about the books that you haven't read. I'm not saying I have read all of those books. Certainly nobody has. And that's the point, right? That it's big.
Yeah, but
right?
think about all the fossil bones they don't have, but they pretend they have. Or think about the 98% DNA shared with chimps that isn't true. It's similarity in the DNAs. There's probably 60% actual shared DNA that we have with chimps if you examine it all.
I'm so curious where you get that number from, but I don't see this leading anywhere productive. Johnny, do you have more here? All right, Rick, I believe it's you and me. Do you have any sort of final thoughts for me here? Because I am trying to interact with you on some of these things. I'm trying to peel back the onion, and it feels like you're looking at this sort of widespread, gigantic, persecutorial conspiracy, and I'm just not there with you because I've seen all of the little steps that lead up to these bigger things, and they just don't look the way that you describe them.
Okay, to prove my point, I mean, we just witnessed tens of millions of scientists and professionals globally get fired because they didn't follow what atheistic called science. We just watched that happen globally, except the fast food employees, right? Because that's logical. They get to keep their jobs, right?
Wow.
That's the point. Everything that goes against the grain of secular science is eliminated. That's not the way science works.
You're right. That is very much not how science works. So I'm glad that we are on the same page about that. I'm glad that we understand the scientific method. I would maybe encourage you to examine your sources on some of your data points and to recognize that this is not some grand conspiracy against Christianity. This is tiny little people all over the world making tiny little contributions to this gigantic thing that we call science. And that doesn't have a voice. That doesn't have a perspective. It doesn't have a viewpoint or a philosophy. It's a collection of data points.
Rick, do you feel that your Christian worldview is persecuted?
I mean, Christians are persecuted globally. Do I feel like I'm personally persecuted? I mean, as far as what just happened, people losing their jobs, but that wasn't just Christian people. But yeah, I do think Christians are persecuted a lot more than you guys are. I think you guys own this world.
Is that right?
This is your world. It's not ours. You're on Satan's side.
Oh my goodness.
That's absolutely right.
Yeah.
You're just brainwashed into the left-wing ideology. You don't see it, but you're not oppressed. You guys are freer than anyone in this world.
Tell me some of the left-wing ideology. I'd love to hear more about it from your perspective.
The left-wing ideology?
Yeah. Tell me more about it. You seem to know a lot about it.
The left-wing ideology pushes your ideology on everybody else, and then you claim victim. That's pretty much left-wing in a nutshell.
What are we pushing?
Right? You guys own everything. You guys riot in the street while pastors get arrested for going outside. Everybody got locked down on COVID except for you guys. You guys do whatever you want, right? You guys are not oppressed. You're free. Absolutely. You know it's right.
Have you been following the decisions of the Supreme Court in the last couple of years?
What, because you can't do baby sacrifices, man? Like, stop having random sex with people. You just promoted random sex.
Have you been following the Supreme Court decisions lately with regard? Oh my goodness, Rick, you know what? Let me mute you. I'm not hanging up on you, but folks out there in the audience, there's a phrase: never let him see you sweat. Rick is the reason why you never let them see you sweat, because it's kind of embarrassing. So Rick, I'm going to let you cool down, and I'm going to explain what I mean when I say Supreme Court decisions recently. Up until this point, there was Supreme Court case law suggesting that it doesn't matter what your religious beliefs are, that there are certain standards that must be met in order for you to be allowed to practice your religious faith in certain ways. An example of this would have been, some time ago, about like peyote, or different religious groups use illegal drugs to as part of their religious ceremonies. Okay. And it didn't matter that their faith required them to do that, or that was a key elemental, aspect of their religious faith. The fact was, peyote and different kinds of drugs were against the law for other reasons, right? And therefore you couldn't do it. But in recent times, Rick, there have been some Supreme Court decisions that would suggest that even though there was what has been designated as like a public emergency with regard to COVID and what have you, if there was a sincerely held, and I don't know who determines this, a sincerely held religious belief that has a component where you have to gather together, okay? And I don't have the case law memorized, nor do I have the case name memorized. This is not difficult to find. This is all over the news. But the law now is that if it actually affects religious people's faith, you can't make a restriction on it. And I'm really dumbing it down, because it's much more sophisticated than that, and it's much more nuanced. But in essence, Rick, the Supreme Court is more conservative than it's been in a long time. And I'm not talking about, as you might call it, killing babies. I'm talking about carve-outs for religious beliefs, sort of carving them out from other obligations that the rest of society is forced to follow. Now, you might think that that's dynamite, and I'm not sure if you do, but I'm going to tell you something, that the numbers aren't looking good for whatever particular superstition you may believe in. Numbers are slowing down and are starting to decrease. And at some point, Christianity and the Levantic religions may start becoming the minority, and other religions whose tenets you're not comfortable with may start taking over, demographically speaking. And it's going to be at that time that you, Rick, and others like you, Rick, are going to be wishing that the separation of church and state wall were robust and protective. But at this time, maybe you don't. Maybe you don't. But I'm going to unmute you. I'm talking about that, okay? I'm not talking about whatever emotional issue you want to talk about. Let's talk about that. Okay? So go ahead. You're unmuted, Rick. I hope you were listening. What are your thoughts on that, Rick? Rick, it better be about what I'm talking about, because if it's not, I'm gonna have to let you go.
It is. So quickly, I just want to say that Jesus predicted that would happen. So when we get to that point, it's fine. Second of all,
wait, hold on, Rick, you're gonna have to be muted. No. And see, that's the thing. You did the thing that I guess I didn't. I told you not to do. I told you to address this point, and you decided to preach.
There was an agreement. Yeah.
There was an agreement. It's conditional, much like God's love. And so I'm going to go ahead and drop you, Rick, and you can go ahead and call back some other time. I'm going to talk to Chuck. All right. Chuck is calling in from the beautiful state of Hawaii.
Mm-hmm.
And Chuck is a theist, and he wanted to give scientific evidence for the existence of God.
Beautiful.
That is what we're all about.
That's what we're here for.
So now I want to say, Chuck, Christy is not a scientist. I'm not a scientist.
True.
He's more of a scientist than I am.
I'm a clinician. Yeah.
Yeah. And I yell at people for a living until they give up. And so because you might want to talk to some other hosts who are more sciencey, but we're not slouches. What do you got?
Well, I realize you're not scientists, but there's only two choices when it comes to the universe. You either join a religion and say that God created everything and God is making everything work, or the only other choice you have is science, which says there is no God. So there's no other choice in between there. And
I mean, science is a good choice. It's certainly not the only choice. Like, you can believe in all kinds of bananas things if you really want to, but let's just go ahead and say, okay, either you believe in God or you don't believe in God, right? Can we start with that as a premise?
Sure.
Cool. Let's keep going.
Okay. Well, you don't really have to be a scientist to look at the Earth and what's going, the universe, and see what's going on, because the universe doesn't make any sense, and it doesn't. There's got to be something that created it, and there's got to be something that's keeping it working, because it doesn't work on its own. It's idiotic. It's really crazy. There's nothing holding the atoms together to make a molecule and form iron plates and wood.
There's nothing?
And stuff.
There's nothing holding it together? The atoms together? I don't think that's true.
Because the atoms are together. So something's doing it.
So is it you're saying it's sweet Jesus, Prince of Peace, that's doing it, right? I mean, that's kind of weird.
No, I'm not.
What are you saying?
No,
what are you saying then?
I'm not.
You're not.
I'm saying that my God. I'm saying that man is not an animal, because in the first place, man is the only being on this planet that has cheeks covering his anus.
Wait, is that what you were saying earlier? Because you're kind of losing me. Can we pick one thing and then do that one thing? Also, bullshit about
Well,
the
the
cheeks.
universe-
But let's just pick one thing, and we'll do that one.
Can I say this? Can I say this?
Okay.
And this maybe gets clipped. I've noticed my dog poops. Okay, he doesn't wipe. Too much information. He poops every day, twice a day. He never wipes. He doesn't smell like poop. 3 cheers for that, because I don't want to wipe my dog's ass. All right, but you've got a point there. Okay, but I don't know what the point is. But it's go on.
But it's a point.
Oh, it's a great point too.
Okay.
Yeah.
And science is basically just another religion that takes the opposite side and says there is no God. And
okay.
and then they do the same thing that that religion does.
Religion is just a bad science. And I mean, what do these words even mean?
Chuck, I gotta stop you there. It's not just another religion, because here's the difference. And again, we're not scientists, but religion.
Nor do you have to be a scientist to not be religious.
Yeah.
Or even believe in science.
Okay. Religion starts with I think we can safely say it starts with a revealed truth, revealed somehow through the process of revelation. We can be generic as heck about it, right? And then they work backward from there, right? They work backwards from the revealed truth. Science is the opposite.
Well, religion makes up these theologies to support its point of view, and science does the same darn thing. They make up these idiotic theologies to support their point of view, and none of them are true, and they all come from the English, who are stupid, and they push these things upon dumbass Americans who are gullible they just believe anything that's in a book.
I don't. First of all, we've got our backup host is watching the show right now. He is English.
Who's that?
Okay, that's Richard
Who is
Gilliver. Okay, this is a smart dude. All right, he's not an idiot. Richard,
yes, he is.
I'm sorry, he is. He's a smart guy. We love him. He's doing a great job. He's not what?
Doesn't make any difference if you love him.
This is getting pretty schoolyard, Chuck. I mean,
can
we focus it a little bit?
Chuck, you're not doing a good job of representing the theist position here.
You don't know how the English system works, the English educational system. They don't have classes. They don't have professors. They read a book. They meet with an upperclassman a couple of times a week, and he signs them books to read. Their whole educational system is based upon books, just reading the book.
100-book universities are actually pretty amazing, but that's not what the English elementary school system looks like, I can guarantee.
Pretty problematic, those things, books. You never know what you might find out.
I do appreciate, Chuck, that you have decided to be a little bit xenophobic towards the British, because I don't really applaud or approve of xenophobia or this othering process and the bigotry that comes with it. But I mean, I guess if you got to pick somebody, it'll be the colonialists.
Yeah.
Hey, Rick, you brought it up. I didn't bring it up.
Sorry, Rick. Chuck, you said the reason why I called you Rick is because you're starting to sound like Rick. But Chuck, you've made no points. You've scored no points here. And I'm going to say this, that science is the exact opposite of religion. You're characterizing it in this kind of straw man characterization. Because
it's only opposite because it says there's no
Chuck,
God.
I'm going to go ahead and mute you, because there's one thing, is one rule, is just let me talk. And people can tell me I talk too much, but it's my decision to do so. But Chuck, science starts from observation, right? And then they form a hypothesis about the world. They don't start with a conclusion. They start with observing the world and trying to hypothesize how something happens, how something takes place, how it got there, how it develops, how it works. And they try to through using actual existing material or energy or whatever it might be, waves and such. Again, this is not a scientific person talking. They let the evidence lead them. Religion's the opposite. Religion starts with a conclusion, and then it works backwards to justify it. Okay? This is pretty damn well established. I would also argue that religion has certain other characteristics, okay? There's usually a hierarchy, okay? In science, you might have professors and universities and people who give you the sweet, sweet dough to do the research, and they might indeed sort of point the spotlight on where the money can go, right? But the scientists themselves are always combating each other, trying to disprove what other people have declared as a discovery. They're always trying to disprove each other. It's only after it's been disproven over and over and over again that we can say that a particular discovery by a laboratory or a scientific team has any reliability to it. And even then, it never ends. It's Thunderdome out there in the scientific community. It's not kumbaya, okay? Also, religious rites, ceremonies, things like that, okay? There is nothing. There's merely the scientific method, which is, as far as we know, the best way we've developed to discover new things about the world. We don't introduce... Here's the thing. If we ever do introduce another step into the scientific process, it will be through the process of science that we introduce that new step. It won't be through reading a 2,000-year-old book of, dare I say it, fairy tales. It will be through actually observing. And we have introduced new things. We can run now new simulations using high-powered computer processing. Right? That's a new thing that we're able to do, to check and recheck much faster than these meatballs can do, right? And we can check the checking, and we can check the checking of the checking. We can keep on doing it. So that's a new thing. Science is ever evolving. Religion is ever holding people back to 2, 3, 4,000-year-old tired notions of what the world is like, and what humans should be like, and how people should interact with each other. So, yeah, if you're going to say science and religion are the same, or science is a religion because it involves humans, because it involves interaction, because it involves, I don't know, declarations of facts, yeah, sure. It's so blasé, it's meaningless, Chuck.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but if we're going to really look into the nitty gritty, they're the opposite. And science got you to be able to call me, got you to be able to look at my face. Science probably developed the medicine that you may use, that I certainly use. Science got electricity running through the wires. Science got the internet. Science got this chair I'm sitting in. You know, these synthetic fabrics that I'm sitting upon. Wasn't through pray the chair here. It was through manufacturing science and developments. Okay? So science delivers the goods. Religion gets us killing each other. Okay? So
and as an English person, Chuck. I am English.
Uh-oh.
So I'd like your take on what you think is wrong with me personally, and I would like to respond to it specifically. So what is it exactly that you find so abhorrent about English people?
Well, the problem is that England doesn't have any industry. So what they do is...
Well, we kind of do have an industry. I come from a city.
Are you going to let me finish?
No, you're going to listen to me, sir.
Yeah.
I come from a city called Sheffield, which has a history of steel manufacturing, and I live around lots and lots of mining cities. Again, huge industries in Britain, built in Britain, in fact. So I'm very interested in why you think we don't have those industries when, in fact, we do.
Do you realize that England lives off of welfare from the United States right now? A form of $15 billion every year.
Chuck, you seem to have completely...
We're going to do just one thing at a time, there, friend. One thing at a time.
Yeah. Chuck, you seem to have completely ignored what I've just said to you. Now, you said Britain has no industry, and I've just corrected that. And I'd be very interested in you responding to that particular point rather than moving on to another one.
Well, you don't have any industry. They train everybody to be why do you have to have that $15 billion from the United States every year if you
that has not responded to the point that I made. What?
Chuck, I think you might be afraid to answer Richard's point because you know you're flat wrong. If you're not shivering in your boots over Richard's point, then please directly address with some evidence how Richard is wrong. You're being unmuted. If you say something other than you're right, Richard, or no, there's no industry, those are cardboard cutouts of factories, then you are admitting to everyone who's watching right now that you're afraid. So go ahead. Evidence or retract? Evidence or retract,
God
Chuck?
Damn, will you shut up and let me answer? My God, you people have absolutely no idea of what a conversation is. I'm trying
Which
to...
people, is that English or is it the Americans on the panel as well? Because we seem to be getting a bit convoluted.
Okay, Chuck, give us what you got, and it better be on point or you're getting out of here. Come on.
Okay, $15 billion a year from the United States. They had to give up, Clinton made them give up all the car industries because they were all living on subsidies. And they weren't making any money. It was just costing the American taxpayer a lot of money. And so he made them give all those things up and a bunch of other stuff.
So Richard says there's manufacturing in and around the area that he lives. Is he wrong? Is he lying? Is he right? Which is it?
Well, basically he's lying.
Okay. Richard Gilliver.
Yes,
Big
sir.
fat liar.
Yes, sir. Apparently so.
Well, I'll tell you what, Chuck. You're a mischievous prankster, and I'm glad you're having a good time. But I just don't think that there's that's any good. So I'm gonna actually get rid of you. Okay.
Sorry, friend. Nobody's convinced.
Yeah.
Find some information. Find some evidence. Find some data.
Yeah. Let's talk to Sam. Sam is a gent coming out of New York, and he wants to talk about evolution and Christianity. Sam, you got 3 people facing you, okay? What do you got? Evolution and Christianity. Go.
Thank you for taking my call. All right, so evolution. How do you, and mind you, I do have an accent. I was born in a Eastern Bloc country, so I lived under communism for a long time. So hence, I believed in evolution for throughout all of my life. So what do I have for you? How do you prove evolution, one, and how do you prove God, two? Well, you can prove one or the other. Christianity is based on faith, and what do we have? We do have documentation that proves that Jesus was a person, he was a real person, he was alive, and there's plenty of documentation that he lived, and he died, and he was resurrected, and he performed miracles. Now,
I'd love to hear. Yes, I'd love to hear. I'd love to hear what the evidence is that he was resurrected, because on this day, that day that we are reminded of he who died and was risen again, it's sort of poignant. So, what is that evidence? I want to hear it.
Okay, so the evidence is witness testimony. That's a good enough evidence in a court of law. Do you agree?
No, I don't agree. I don't agree.
So do you agree that, do you agree that Caesar was a real person based on documents that we have from ancient times?
I'll accept that Caesar, which one? Julius or Augustus or one of the other Caesars?
Yeah,
Let's just
Julius.
say Julius Caesar.
Napoleon,
Sure.
Alexander the Great, the Tsar of Russia. We didn't have internet. We didn't have videotapes. We didn't have cameras. So we go by witness testimony, right? And by historical fact.
We have lots of evidence regarding Caesar, don't we? We've got
existing, not doing anything supernatural.
Oh,
but,
sure.
Yeah.
We've got coins, we've got historical writings, we've got buildings, we've got statues, and although admittedly that all that could have been faked. Okay, it could have been faked. There's nothing saying it couldn't. And for Jesus, we have a few books that are all contained within a compendium of books we call the New Testament, and we have nothing outside of the New Testament. But more importantly than that, okay, Julius Caesar probably had. I know that the Romans like to deify their emperors, and they, at least at some point in Roman history, they would say they became gods or they were gods, and there probably were Romans who believed that the Caesars could perform supernatural tasks, physically impossible miracles and what have you. We don't accept that, and we don't because there's no good evidence to prove that Caesar or any of the Caesars could perform miracles. With Jesus, we have no really good reason to believe that Jesus could perform physically impossible feats, right? We just have like writings of people.
I agree that we do have writings and we do have witness testimony. Now,
writings about witness testimony, sure.
Yeah, writings about witness testimony. Who were the witnesses? Who were the witnesses, Sam?
So the witnesses are people that lived in his lifetime, and we do also have people that were during Roman times, right? Because
we don't have those people. Those people are dead. We're relying on the things that they wrote down. And Johnny is pointing out that we only have a very limited number of this compendium of religious work that is then that eyewitness testimony. You don't get credit for an eyewitness and also the written report of that eyewitness, especially when the eyewitness is dead and not here to testify. So we have this written compendium. What else do we have? What else is there?
And Sam, Christy just said something that's awesome. Okay. We have something in the law called hearsay. Okay. And there are certain statements that are classified as non-hearsay, and there are certain set of statements that are called, they're exempt from the hearsay rule. And the hearsay rule is an out-of-court statement offered as evidence to prove the matter asserted. Okay. And mostly we exclude, and there's a lot of ways that even lawyers get confused over what constitutes hearsay. Sometimes there's hearsay upon hearsay. So what we have in the Bible we have multiple deep turtles all the way down kind of hearsay. We have out-of-court statements being offered to prove the matter asserted. And the out-of-court statements are like, I witnessed Jesus. He's a cool dude. He came to me on the road to Damascus, and he said these things, and he did all this stuff. So we are taking the writings of Paul. That's a hearsay statement. Now, there are ways to allow it into court, admissible hearsay exemptions. Like, for example, excited utterances, right? Richard Gilliver killed me, and someone reports that, right? That would be an excited utterance. There are examples of, we have like police records. We have medical records. These are documents that are made in the course of business, okay, that we say this has an indicia of reliability, so that we will accept these as authentic, as admissible, okay, and we will allow it into the evidence. Now, we know that there may be ways of showing that a document is not, but we have affidavits of establishing it. What we have with the Bible stuff is ancient statements made by unidentified individuals, okay? We have no way to cross-examine them. They don't fall into the category of excited utterance. They don't fall into the category of records made in the course of business. They don't fall under any of the hearsay exceptions. So they're just statements. We wouldn't let it into court. We just don't do it, man.
Well,
like, that's garbage evidence.
We would probably,
if you tried admitting, let me just say this, Sam, real quick, and I'll shut up. I promise.
If
you tried,
no problem.
Sam, give me some. Yeah, I'm sorry. Thank you. And I'm getting kind of, a little jazzy. If you were to try to admit Bible level statements into court, all right, on like a traffic ticket, okay, you would kind of be laughed out of court, and you should be ashamed of yourself, and you should probably hire an attorney. So why do we accept that that's okay with traffic court for parking tickets and speeding tickets and stuff, but we don't, we think, no, it's fine. We can drop the standard of evidence for like how we spend our eternity, and more importantly, how we spend our time here on earth, right? It's like, dude, it should be a higher standard of evidence than we would employ in parking ticket litigation. Dude, seriously.
Hey, I agree with you. So,
all right.
If we go to court, I would definitely get laughed out of court if I bring the Bible and, to court and say, hey, this is, proving a certain point, whatever, that's fine.
Yeah.
But
gotcha.
At the same token, we can't have, a murder that happened 2,000 years ago, go to court, and the same would apply, right? Is that correct? It would not be admissible evidence.
It wouldn't be admissible evidence because it's shit evidence. Pardon my language. It's shit evidence that the murder took place.
Well, no, I'm just
furthermore, there's statutes of limitations on certain kinds of evidence. There's something called spoliation, where evidence goes bad over time. Now, granted, a person could be prosecuted for a murder that took place 2,000 years ago, I suppose, since there's no statute of limitations in prosecuting murders. However, there's no witnesses, there's no material evidence. We have no reason to believe that this murder took place other than there is a story that some dude got killed.
Perfect.
Just like there's a story that some freaking leprechauns dumped a king into a lake. I mean, it's like, we know lakes exist. We know crucifixes exist. We knew kings existed. We knew that iterant preachers in the Middle East were abundant, right? The thing that's weird about all this stuff is that we've got people talking about like freaking loaves and fishes and walking on water and leprechauns and stuff. We don't accept that stuff because it's garbage evidence.
Okay.
But you do. So go on.
Fine. With our standards, let's say it's garbage evidence. I'll take that. Fine. Now, do you have any evidence that went from a one cell to a human being? What evidence do we have for that? And why do you accept that?
So this is whataboutism. Okay. So here's the thing. I keep on saying that. Here's the thing. The thing is all around us.
Right.
I would beg to differ. Okay. As far as the science of cellular biology, as far as evolutionary science is concerned, we have built upon basic principles of evolutionary biology incredible models that, when employed in specific ways, can predict the behavior of biological organisms. There are a lot of unknowns. There are known unknowns, and there are unknown unknowns about evolution and biology. Nevertheless, as time goes on, the models of evolution through natural selection have resulted in predictions that in the real world, right, are manifested in the real world. With regard to all your religious claims, it can just be wrong. And there's no predictions being made. And if you're going to say Bible predictions, biblical predictions, like, rumors of wars and that kind of garbage, it's terrible, man. It's not good. You seem like a smart guy, Sam. And I'm telling you, like, you probably believe this stuff because you were raised in it, or you came to believe it for some strange reasons that if you really sat down to it and you removed your emotions from it, you'd probably agree with me that it's trash and you deserve better. So, Sam, I've talked a lot. Go ahead. What do you got?
And when I say Christians, they get a bad reputation because, we talk, a lot of Christians, they're not really Christians when they hate on, let's say, on gays, or they hate on a certain type of lifestyle. That's not Christian, okay? So to be a Christian,
they are.
To be loving.
They think they are, dude.
But I I don't think they do think they are, but we are not commanded to hate, right? So we're commanded to love. And you can't hate on someone because they have a certain lifestyle. Now, do I agree with it? Maybe not. But the thing is that, it's between them and God, in my eyes. So a lot of Christians get a bad reputation. Now, when it comes to, and I do agree that you guys are very smart as well, I did some science, I did some chemistry, and based on that, I know for a fact, and maybe you can, prove me wrong, but I know for a fact that inorganic chemistry does not tend to go towards organic chemistry. So with that being said, is elements that are inorganic, they don't care about life. So they don't care about creating a cell.
Is this the genetic
fallacy? It was the perfect condition. Right. No, what I'm saying is we had the perfect conditions that, gave us life. But what was that spark? Can we recreate that in a lab? We certainly can't.
Okay,
and
Sam, right now,
go ahead.
Johnny P. Angel Labs, right? And I know some scientists.
Yes, sir.
I guarantee you that if Johnny P. Angel Labs were to get a grant for the National Endowment for the Arts, I don't know why that, and we were to get billions of dollars, I could not create from inorganic matter, right? Or even organic matter or whatever the heck, cells and stuff. Who cares? What you are suggesting is that because we don't know how cells came to be, because we don't know how single cells became multicellular, and because we don't know how humans came from what has been deduced from the facts of existence, that there was some sort of pond scum at some point that resulted in some stew of chemicals. We have human beings and we have, sparkly jackets and, whatever. That therefore it was some supernatural thing. What you're doing is you're saying, I don't know how it happened, so I'm going to say it was God. Why can't you just say, we don't know yet, or we may never know? But you're suggesting something. Wait. You're solving a mystery with a greater mystery, Sam. Go on.
Actually, what I'm suggesting here, I agree with your reasoning, okay? And even though I don't, I agree to disagree, even though I'm not, okay with it, but fine. Here's my piece. I say that
Give me your piece. I want your piece.
But science reveals God to us every day. So at one point, we will be able to understand how God created the universe and how he created, humans. At one point, we will be able to, right? I'm not saying because we don't know, hence God. I'm not saying that.
Okay.
I'm saying that.
I'm still not sure how God comes into it, though, because if we use science to try and understand, how did abiogenesis occur and what does it actually look like for a single cell organism to become a multi-cell organism and all of these processes, we don't have answers to those questions, but I'm still trying to figure out how does God factor into that?
Yeah.
We don't, and us Christians, we don't have that answer for you. All we have is evidence.
Okay.
And we don't have
people who are not Christians also don't have that answer. I still don't understand.
So it's all by faith, right? So, it's all based on faith. We Christians have a faith in Jesus Christ that he's God.
So
I believe that
faith equals God, no faith equals no God. Isn't that where we started? I'm still struggling.
Sam, I know it comes down to faith. We've been doing this for, what did I say in the beginning? How many years?
26 years? 28 years? Sorry. 26.
No. Sam, we're with you, right? This is what I think is happening here. You accepted through faith, whatever the heck that means, that a God exists.
Correct.
Okay?
Correct.
Okay. Does that mean you just decided to believe?
No, I decided to believe because, I had to ponder a lot of things that were going on in my life. And, believing in Jesus and believing in God made me a better person. I'm still a sinner. I'm still,
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that's it. That's the thing that we wanted to hear.
Yeah.
I believe in God because believing in God makes you a better person, or at least you see it that way. Yeah. That's, that's a sufficient answer for you.
Because of evidence, one, and I accept that evidence. And two, by believing in him, I'm becoming a better person, more Christ-like. every day.
I think that second answer may be the answer for you because we still haven't heard the evidence. Johnny, I'll let you have it. We can start to put a bow on this.
Sam, you know what makes me a better person? I think, which is that and I'm not a great, perfect, saintly person. I might be an angel, but I'm not an angel.
Can testify.
What makes me a better person is recognizing, or at least holding this current thought, that this is the only world that I believe that I will ever experience. This is the only time I will be alive. And there are other people around me who I know exist, or at least that might be a brain floating in a vat. I guess that's possible. But in truth, there are people around me. Okay. I see them. I see that my actions can affect their well-being, that I don't get a second chance in another life, that whatever I do, I need to make sure that I'm trying to not make the world a worse place because I have perhaps evolutionarily derived drives to cooperate with the people around me. I have like a built-in or evolved sense of compassion and sympathy with others. Okay. That by clamping on to that, yes, I'm a one-winged angel, less but lucid. Thank you. By clamping onto that, I realized that my actions have consequences, and so my actions should be good, or there will be bad consequences that I will have to live with, and I will just be shitting on everyone in my path. Okay? I don't get to ask for forgiveness, get a splash of holy water, go into a little box and tell a potential child molester that, I did something wrong and he'll forgive me because Jesus said so. I have to live with the consequences of my actions. Okay. And all of those things, all right, are actually real. Those are real people.
We're on the same page. We have to be good to other people, right? We're on the same page. And as far as people abusing children or abusing other people in general, that's between them and God. Just because they say that, oh, Jesus will forgive me. Well, we don't know. It's between them and God, right?
It's not between them and God, dude. Sam, it's between them and the criminal justice system. Okay? Let's find those people
on the other
and deal with them. Go on.
No, absolutely. I agree with you. But on the other life,
yeah.
You know what I'm saying? On the other life, it's between them and God. I don't accept that Jeffrey Dahmer, just because he professed Christianity, he's a saved Christian. I don't know. It's between him and God. I don't know.
I don't believe that God exists, Sam. I don't.
Yeah, I'm still waiting for the evidence of God. We're getting pretty far afield into the value of religion or the source of morality or whatever else. But with 30 seconds on the clock, please,
what I wanted to say is that we both agree that Christianity is a faith, is based on faith, and also, as you guys accepted, evolution is based on, at some point, in some type of faith. Is that correct?
We did not accept
that. Is that a good assumption?
No, we did not accept that. You did not get to wave the checkered flag on that one. No. We did not.
Okay.
What we did say was that, and we said this earlier today. No, it's fine. I don't think that faith is a pathway to truth. And I'm going to say this, Sam, and I'd like you to call back because actually you're a great caller. You should have called an hour ago so we could spend more time with you. You should call back. You're a cool guy. I don't know if you have any objectionable beliefs that I don't know about, but that's not what I'm talking about right now. Okay. I like this conversation. This is the kind of conversation we like to have on this show. All right. I want you to think about this.
I love conversations, guys.
Yeah. Is there anything you couldn't believe based upon faith? Now don't answer. Okay. Because that's a whole other conversation. Mm-hmm. Is there anything you couldn't believe by just saying, well, you got to take it as a matter of faith, don't you? Okay. Now, with that, we're going to let you go. If you're Christian or whatever religion you are, enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Okay. And we are going to let you go, Sam. Thank you so much for your call, Christy.
My brain's a little fried from that one. Yeah.
No, there's so much there. There's so much there to talk about, and I would say that. What's the beautiful thing about this show, Talk Heathen, and other shows on this channel is we have so many different kinds of hosts who have different ways to address these problems, right? Psychologically, emotionally, scientifically, medically, legally sometimes, right? Philosophically. in all these different ways. And that particular caller sort of touches on so many different ways. And that's why I want him to call back, because I think that belief, that those expressions of faith may be death by 1,000 cuts. I want to believe that Sam is an honest conversationalist. I believe he is. And that by talking with every single one of these hosts, we could really address the whole spectrum of his beliefs and all that jazz.
Yeah, I mean, definitely multidisciplinary, right? Because we're bouncing around a lot, which is, I think, maybe a hallmark of magical thinking, and a lot of what we are here to work against, because there is so much that once you try and pin down, well, but what about this? Well, what about this? And that's where we start to notice, oh, okay, we're not really employing the scientific method. We're not really employing like rational thought. And I hope that Sam goes back and listens back to that call. He may not, change his entire worldview because of anything magical that happened in those 20 minutes, but I think he'll be hard pressed to find a moment where he said, I believe X because of Y, and then presented any sort of like substantial evidence that would be meaningful to anybody other than him himself.
Yeah, and I would say this, Christy, I agree with everything you said. I think there's a difference, and I don't want to poo-poo Rick. Okay, there's a difference between, I think, the Sam caller type of caller, all right, and the Rick caller, okay, and the Chuck caller. Okay, I put Rick and Chuck kind of in the same category. And Chuck and Rick, you can just go talk to yourselves, maybe find out if you agree with each other. I don't know, but
go talk to yourselves feels like a veiled comment. I get it.
That's vicious. No, I don't mean that. But I think whereas with Sam, we have an opportunity to sort of zero in on one thing. I think with those other guys, they're maybe not as interested in taking in new information and processing it, putting it through their filters and talking about it. But I get a feeling that Sam does. But let me just do our final roundup. Okay. If you happen to be in the Austin area, April 30th, 2023, we're going to be broadcasting live from the library. Join us for Talk Heathen, hosted by Objectively Dan and a special guest, Blind Limey. Blind Limey showed up on audition day, and he did a fantastic job, and he was a really great guy. Later, the Atheist Experience will be hosted by Jim Barrows and yours, our favorite over here, Christy Powell.
Me, myself.
That's right. Doors are going to open at noon. And we had a great time last time that I was there. And I think last month was great too. But doors open at noon. See you there. All right. We've got the live stream. The live stream is something that I sign in every so often to see. Maybe I'm only been on a fraction of shows, but every so often I see my stupid mug up on the screen to see some of my stuff. But if you've ever said to yourself, gee whiz, I love all that ACA content, but I don't want to fish through stuff. I just want to feed. I just want to get it. Feed me, Seymour, feed me all night long. Well, you can do that by going to this page. It's the 24-hour AXP TV live stream. Any time of the day, there's a stream of shows, clips, and specials from over 26 seasons. Visit tiny.cc/AXPTV to join the fun. And we're talking all the way back. Okay? We're going retro stuff here. All right? But question of the week. All right. We talked about it. What's a life hack that God doesn't want you to know about? Enter your answer in the comments section below, and we'll read it on next week's episode. Christy, it's been a while since we hosted a show together.
Yeah, no, definitely true. I have been glad to be here. We have gotten kind of all around some kind of trolly calls, but some good stuff. And you know what? A small stack of super chats, if you don't mind me hitting some of those real quick.
Do it.
Yeah. So Rise of Azazel offers 550 New Zealand dollars, I believe. According to the Acts of Paul and Thesia, Paul was staunchly anti-natalist, pro-celibacy. I think that that's a fair point. I mean, we don't have time to get into the Quiverful movement and a lot of the other sort of pseudo-Christian beliefs, but I think that philosophy tracks.
Yeah.
Carpe Diem, who we spoke to, offered $10, saying the question, how do we make sure we aren't doing what we should do because we are saying, oh, that's a virtue? So the question that you heard today on this show earlier on Talk Heathen, also here in the super chat. Let's see, $5 from Dean Meadows. Are either of you materialists? If so, how can you know your own thoughts, beliefs are true if it is just atoms knocking around in your skull? To that, I have to say, what is the difference between it being your thought and an atom knocking around in your skull? Are they the same thing? Determinism. I don't know.
Dean, call.
Yeah,
It's
let's
been
have
a
that
while.
conversation.
It's been a while, Dean. Come on, call in. Yep.
Another $5 from Carpe Diem. Wow, that grammar is not grammaring. If it is suffering I am not directly causing, I do what I can without sacrificing my ability to do more in the future. Not a bad point to make.
Yeah.
$5 from Ember saying, oh, so good to see Christy popping in on other shows during his vacation. Johnny, as always, a pleasure. Great show, fellas and crew too. Happy Bunny Day. $5 from Hell's Bells saying, happy Zombie Jesus Day. Can I get my B-Day wishes? Well, happy birthday to Hell's Bells and friend of Secular Sexuality. Let's see. Angela 42, $5 saying, happy Werewolf Zombie Jesus Day. There seems to be this ongoing argument, is Jesus a zombie? You know what? We can all dive in and work.
He's a lich.
out.
I thought that was established.
That
He's a lich.
seems to be the operating philosophy. You want to jump in on any of these? Let's see. I've got one more from Rob Irwin offering $5 just in tribute to Johnny's suit coat, which I think is well earned.
Thank you.
And and I hope I did not miss anybody. I certainly don't mean the insult, but I believe that that's everybody.
Folks, we talked about it before, and we're going to get out of here. It's great to have these conversations. It's great to sort of wade in the bad thinking, but there's a world out there. That's what separates non-believers from believers. This is our world. Some people think, well, it doesn't matter how bad the world gets. Let's make it really bad so that the end will come so we can quicker get to heaven and live that eternal life. We ain't got that. We got this world. So to the best of our ability, let's spend a little bit of time trying to make this world a little bit better of a place. And that's up to you to decide how to do it. So with that said, Jolan True, and we'll see you next week. Bye.
What will it take for you to start opening your eyes, to start questioning the bullshit everyone around you buys? You think it's any of your business what goes on between my thighs? I wonder when we'll be rid of your life.
Watch Talk Heathen live Sundays at 1 p.m. Central. Visit tiny.cc/YTTH and call into the show at 512-991-9242 or connect to the show online at tiny.cc/callth.